Are you still holding out hope that you're going to wind up in Cooperstown?
I don't want to go to the Hall of Fame after they bury me. What good is that going to do my family? What good is that going to do my fans? If I'd have beat my wife, I'd already been in the Hall of Fame. If I'd have been an alcoholic, I'd already been in the Hall of Fame. I just took the wrong vice. Do you really think I'm the only player in the world ever to bet on baseball?
You know how this goes.
Mark, let me start with you. What was your vision when you started this? What'd you want to get, and how close did you come to getting what you wanted? You had to go to certain places, and how hard that was.
Again, I thank you, Pete, for not jumping out of your chair a few times when I thought you might.
That's because I can't.
I will say to your first question, I got more than I ever could have imagined. When we first talked about doing this, I asked Pete if everything was on the table, and he said to me literally, "You can ask me anything you want to ask me, and I'll answer." And he held true.
Pete, what did you want to get out of this, and why did you agree to do it?
Al, I could talk all night about baseball. You know, I love the game today. The players are so good today. And I know I was at a function a couple of weeks ago, and I took questions from the audience. And the guy stood up and he said, "What do you think you'd hit if you were playing today?" So I thought for a moment, and I said, "I don't know, 180, 185? He said, "Wow, pitching's really that good?" I said, "No, you dumbass, I'm 83 years old."
So the first year I go to Cincinnati, I meet Pete, and he's holding out in spring training. He's holding out for, I think, $112,500. Bob Housen offered you 105, and I think you signed for 107.5. So Pete played 162 games, most of the spring training games, you missed some, for a grand total of $107,500. Shohei Ohtani, tonight, in Philadelphia, in one game, made $432,000.
God bless him.
It's crazy. The game is so different.
You know, my first year, which was 63, I was Rookie of the Year. My salary was $7,000 a year. I got more than that in my goddamn pocket right now.
The thing about Pete, when I used to drive to the game, we were at home, I would park the car outside the clubhouse, go right in there, and I had to go by Pete's locker, because at Pete's locker was an energy field. I mean, you just felt it. You just felt it. And that rubbed off on the entire team. And that whole team, I think, fed off of Pete. And of course, that story that you saw is so true. In the playoffs in 1973, the day after the Rose Harrelson fight, he is the all-time villain of Gotham. We have the police outside of the hotel, two security guys in front of every door upstairs where we were at the Biltmore Hotel. And the next day, I mean, this was a spirited, lively team, good sense of humor, most of the guys. And we drove out to Shea Stadium the next day, quietest ride ever. This team that had won 99 games, and the Mets had won 82 games, is now one game away from going home. And Pete got up in front of that bus, and not a word was said until we got to the Shea Stadium gate, throwing eggs, throwing everything, signs, the whole thing. Screw you. And Pete got up there in front of the bus. He looks back at the team, and he goes, "Do or die, do or fucking die." And what happened? One of the most dramatic home runs in the history of baseball. In the 12th inning, the game tied 1-1. The man had 3 hits in the game. The Reds had a total of 8. What do you remember about that?
Well, that was one of them deals, Al. I think you'll agree that I wasn't playing against the Mets. I was playing against the city of New York. And they were Met fans, no question about it. And, you know, Buddy Harrelson was a teammate of mine in Phillies. And I just broke up a double play, and he called me a name that I can't repeat tonight. And I kind of grabbed him, and Wayne Garrett come running in there and started the melee. But just winning the game in the 12th inning is big in a playoff game. No question about it. I got a funny story to tell you. I think it's a little off color, but it's funny. What are you going to do, suspend me? Okay, Tony Perez is one of my best friends. Okay, I met Tony Perez a day after I graduated from high school in 1960. I was one day out of high school, and I went to Geneva, New York, and he was a month out of Cuba. That's how long I've known Tony Perez, since 1960. Okay, and I remember the first week I made Cincinnati, and Tony was on the team. And I'll never forget it. Tony went in there to the clubhouse, and he went in the restroom and took a shit. Okay? I swear to God, ladies and gentlemen, he did a turd this long. The clubhouse guy put a sign on the outside, "Please don't flush world's longest turd." And it was in there 3 days. That's my Tony Perez story. That freaking long.
So you can see what I had to work
that
with.
Must have felt.
You can see what I had to work
Now,
with.
everybody in this thing is going to be thinking about Tony Perez when you take a shit tomorrow. No question about it.
I don't know where to go after that. I mean, you've left me freaking speechless. Anyway.
That's a true story.
It's true. In other news, here's the other thing. Let me just finish up what happened the day he hit the home run to beat the Mets. We go to a 5th game and wind up losing, and the Mets go on to the World Series, as it turned out, in '73. I'll never forget, I'm sitting across the bus, across the aisle from you, on the way back to the hotel. And I said, try to put into words what you're thinking about when you know the ball is gone over the right field fence at Shea. And you said to me, you know, when you're round first, you can look into our bullpen, which was back of left field. And you said, the Mets have Staub and Milner coming up, 2 left-handed batters, in the bottom of the 12th. Sparky better get Tom Hall, our lefty reliever, up in the bullpen. That was astonishing to me. Here you were, you just lived the moment that every kid dreams about, right? You took the city of New York and flushed them down Tony Perez's toilet. And all you're thinking about is what a manager would think about. How would you, and of course Pete managed for a number of years in Cincinnati, how would you rate yourself as a manager? How good were you?
Good. I mean, I won a hell of a lot more games than I lost. But all managing is, ladies and gentlemen, is handling people. Because there's only 3 ways you can treat a person. Pat him on the butt, kick him in the butt, or leave him alone. Don't pat the guy and he's kicked. Don't kick the guy and he's left alone. If you're going to ask him to go to war for you every night, you're going to know what makes him tick. Sparky was the best at that. Sparky understood people. You know that, Al. He understood people. He didn't treat me like Bench. He didn't treat Bench like Morgan or Morgan like Perez. He treated us all individually, and he got the most out of us. That's why we won so darn many games. I mean, you got to have a good boss, and he was the boss. And when he came to Cincinnati, he was the third base coach for San Diego the year before. Everybody said, Sparky, who? Hey, he woke them all up because we won several championships. But you got to remember one thing. I tell people this every day, okay? A manager, a coach, whether it's football, basketball, hockey, or baseball, is only as good as his players. If you got horseshit players, you're not going to win. You're not going to win. It's hard to win with great players. And there's too many managers that think that they know everything. Nobody knows everything. But the most managers that will have success are the managers that know their personnel the best, that can get the most out of their personnel. Does that make any sense? I mean, it's the truth. I've seen it year after year after year, and I really worked on getting along with my players, not kissing their ass, but getting along with them. If you have to yell at them, you got to yell at them. If you have to kiss them, kiss them. It's okay. You want them to bust their ass for you. It's the only way you win is people busting their ass. It's not rocket science. It's really not rocket science. Too many people make it too difficult. Okay? Sure, you got to bring the right pitcher in at the right time. You got to send the right pinch hitter up at the right time. And if I send Al up to hit and he strikes out, I was a dumbass. If he hits a home run, I was a genius. That's just the way sports are. Does that make any sense?
It does make sense. Pete, I asked you this, and I want to ask you again tonight. You obviously were managing when the gambling scandal came down and you were put on the permanently ineligible list. The next year, the Reds, they go to the World Series. You know all those players.
It was my team.
I'm just wondering
1990,
if you can put into words what it felt like to watch these young kids who you knew very well. You knew who needed a pat. You knew who needed a kick. To see them perform.
Oh, that was one of them deals when I was down in, I was in prison at USP Marion, and I'm watching the World Series on TV. Now, you got to remember, those are all my players. And all the inmates, it's like there's many as in this audience. We're all watching on the TV. And I'm telling them everything that's going to happen. They thought I was an expert. I said, I know who's going to come in to pinch hit. I knew who they're going to bring in to pitch. Lou Piniella did a great job. I don't know if I'd have won if I was still manager. You know, he had 2 or 3 players that I didn't have. Hal Morris, Rob Dibble, and Randy Myers. If I'd had those 3 the years I finished second, which was 4 straight, I'd have won the pennant every year. But I just didn't have the horses to get the job done. But it was fun trying. It was fun. Managing's fun because you're the boss for 25 players and 4 coaches. Okay, that's just the way it is. And you have one set of rules for everybody in the clubhouse.
Well, you're right. Well, the great thing about Sparky, he knew how to manage people. So, I mean, look, 2 gigantic alpha dogs, as you saw, rows and bench. They're apart in the clubhouse, probably by design. You were in a corner, and I'll never forget when Morgan got traded over. And Joe had been in the league about 7 or 8 years, so it wasn't as if Joe was some young kid coming along. Joe had a pretty good career in Houston, but he was the missing part. And one of the things Sparky did, remember, because Morgan had a reputation of being a little bit of a clubhouse lawyer, which means a smart guy, right, who speaks his mind. That was Joe. And what Sparky did is he put Joe next to you.
Right next to me.
So that energy field was going to rub off on Joe. And that was something to watch.
Yeah, Joe was the greatest. I mean, I remember when I first met Joe, I played against him when he was with Houston, but when he came to Cincinnati, I asked him, I said, Joe, I said, do you like to hit when the pitcher's in the stretch? You know, this instead of winding up. And he said, yeah, everybody does. I said, well, see that office over there, Sparky's office? You go in there and tell that son of a bitch you want to hit after me. Because I'm going to put the goddamn pitcher in the stretch more than anybody else. Next day, that son of a bitch was hitting second. So Sparky listened to him. I guess these people don't know what the hell it means, hitting second compared to 8th. I never hit below 3rd in my life. In my life, I never hit below 3rd. And I played in 3,500 games. 3,500. I batted 16,000 times. Think how many goddamn national anthems I heard.
Including Canadian, too, because Montreal was in the league.
Yeah, 1 year we had twice. Two
right.
national anthems. Oh, Canada.
Our proud and native land, true patriot love. I love hockey. Pete, I got one question. I've never asked it, but I've got to know this. Did you ever seek counsel or thought about going to Gamblers Anonymous at any point?
Yeah, I went a couple of times, and I didn't understand what they were saying.
Really?
I didn't. I really didn't. I mean, maybe I didn't want to, but, you have to understand one thing, ladies and gentlemen. Gambling cost me $100 million. That's what I'd have made in baseball if I hadn't got suspended. So I'm the one that got hurt the most. Me gambling on baseball, I didn't hurt you. I didn't hurt her. I didn't hurt you. I hurt myself and my family, and I was stupid. But I've overcome it. I think I'm saying to myself, if I'm a gambler, why not bet on my team? I'm running the goddamn show. I can make the moves. I didn't ever bet against my team. I bet on my team every frickin' night. That's the kind of faith I had in my players. And they didn't let me. I won a hell of a lot more games than I lost. You know, so in that respect, I was a respected gambler when I was betting on baseball, but I shouldn't have did it. But it was fun doing it. I mean, I went through a period of time where I couldn't watch a sporting event on TV if I didn't bet on it. I had to have a roof for somebody. I haven't gambled now in a couple years. That's God's honest truth.
In a couple years? You haven't gambled in a couple years?
What's that created? I always got money in my pocket. If you don't gamble, you got money in your pocket.
What's your life like right now? You're living in Vegas.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, people say, well, goddamn, he moved to Vegas because he's a gambler. I moved to Vegas because that's where I worked 5 days a week signing autographs. I love Las Vegas. I didn't move there to gamble. I moved there because that's where I worked. And I used to live in L.A. Instead of driving, which I used to do every Friday and go home on Sunday, sign autographs on Saturday and Sunday, I moved there. I got tired of traveling, so I just moved there. It's a great place to live. It's a great place to live.
What happens there doesn't stay in there, right?
Absolutely not.
Mark, quickly, episodes 2, 3, and 4 deal with just Cliff's Notes version of it.
Well, I mean, we span the career and the life. As you saw, there's a modern storyline of his life today, and I think that carries us through as well in terms of his desire to get back into baseball, the actions they take, and his gambling.
Well, I got a couple of things going on in my life today, Al. Pete Rose III is playing baseball outside of Jacksonville at junior college, and he's really good. And my other grandson, Juju, is 9 years old. He's the best player in the league in Vegas. This little son of a bitch can hit. I'm telling you, he can fucking hit. I mean, he's going to make the big leagues. I hope I'm around. I don't think I'll be around, but he just practices every day. He plays baseball. And my other grandson, Pete III, he's just a big, strong ex-football player that loves baseball. And they take after the old man. My son made the big leagues. Their dad, one of their dads, and the other dad was a basketball player. So we got some, you guys are going to get tired of hearing the name Pete Rose in your lifetime.
We'll never get tired of that,
No.
Pete.
I'll tell you this. When I was announcing, Pete with the Reds in 71 through 73, there was an unbreakable record. You couldn't break Ty Cobb's record, most hits in a career, 4,191. Think about this. If you had 200 hits a year for 21 years, you'd break it. Pete broke it. That was one of those things that just was impossible to break. You could not do that because it takes longevity, it takes will, skill, the whole thing. And just the desire to go out. And then the other thing with Pete, bad knees and all, he's got bad knees now, but he never missed a game. He was never...
I missed 10 games in the 70s.
Right.
That's 11 years.
He probably had a cold or something, right? I'll tell you this, though, Pete.
Cold.
I've covered a lot of sports in the last 55 years. I've seen a lot of... I've had Tom Brady, I've had Michael Jordan, I've had Kobe Bryant. You name it. You're my favorite athlete to ever cover because you played the game in spring training. If the game was in the 7th inning and the game was over, and I saw you play that kind of a game, and then I saw you in the 7th game of the World Series, you played the same way.
Yeah.
Constantly.
Yeah.
Constantly.
Well, my philosophy is what? When I was playing a baseball game, if you people were at the game, I owe it to you who paid to get in to bust my ass and try to win the game. And if I don't, I'm cheating you as a fan. And one thing I never did is I never cheated the fans. If it was 15-2, we're losing, I still played hard. If it was 1-0, we're winning, I played hard. That's the only way you can play. And that's the way my grandsons play. You got to teach the kids today how important it is to win. How important it is to get an A. Don't get a D when you can get an A. Don't lose the game when you can win the game. Because believe me, if you got kids out there, grandsons, sons, daughters, whatever, and they're playing sports, don't tell me if you go to one of their games and they win, you don't feel better on the way home. If you don't, you shouldn't be going to the damn game. And that's the way you want the kids to feel. You want them to feel good about themselves. Not I got beat 15-2. I don't want to go home. My dad will whip my ass. That's just the way it was. And I got 26 or 27 major league records, okay? And the best record I got, believe it or not, I played in 1972 winning games. That's a couple hundred more than the guy's second. And it's a guy named Carl Yastrzemski, who was a pretty darn good player himself. Think about that. 1972 winning games. If you win 100 games every year for 19 years, which is impossible, you're still 72 short. That's why you play, to win games. I was crazy about winning. That's the best habit you can get into, I think, as an athlete, winning.